Welcome back to Meditated Art, and today I am doing a painting of my kitty, one of my kitties. I did one of his sister probably last week, 25th of January, actually. I did it because my mom absolutely loves our cats, and I decided to paint one for her birthday. So this is our other cat. Peeves is his name. And he is a tuxedo with some very interesting colorations. So the base layer, I am just doing the general coloration um, of his fur, and then we'll go in a little bit with more details on a smaller brush. So I am using I believe, 1/2 inch flat brush, which I will be retiring because I spent a small fortune on some new professional grade paint brushes. So I'm very excited to start using them. Now it's rather unfortunate that black cats, uh, well, they're looked down upon because, the superstition of being bad luck and stuff like that. But the other thing that I've heard is that black cats don't photograph well, which is complete bullshit. Because they're absolutely darling cats with very quirky personalities, and uh, Peeves, being a tuxedo, has some of those very interesting qualities about him. Um, He is a sweetheart, though, even though he does beat up his sister quite a bit. But some parts of the photograph are very, very black, and then other areas are a little bit lighter. They maybe show the skin through the black fur a little bit more. There's some highlights in there. So that's basically just the general idea of what I'm painting right now. Just very quickly. So some of the darker areas have a dark brown to it, as opposed to just the straight up white. And got some cat fur in the paint. He has a unique coloration to him. Most tuxedos have the white cheeks and the white going up the bridge of the nose, and they're usually fairly symmetrical, and you know, white belly, black on most of the body, maybe some white feet or something like that. But and Peeves is very very different in that way. He he has an exclamation paw. So one of his legs is primarily white. And then he has the paw is black and then a black strip. So it actually looks like an exclamation mark on his leg. It's actually kind of funny. I feel like I should be talking through this, but there's really not much to talk about as I'm just blocking in the basic colors. I'm just trying to add some depth in his neck area. It's a little challenging switching from the black to the white, um, just because the black is so highly pigmented. Um, Even just getting a little bit of it into the white can distort the colors. So it's requires a little bit more diligence when cleaning off the brush to switch back and forth. Now, doing this painting was a little bit more challenging as the most of the paintings that I do that I'm using reference photo for, I have the reference photo on my tablet and I have my phone open so I can see what the camera is seeing and I can adjust the um, the paper or my hand to make sure that you can see everything that I'm doing. But because the photo of Peeves was on my phone, I couldn't actually use it for both. So I'd paint a little bit, then I'd have to pause and make sure that I didn't run into the issue with the um, the camera stopping recording. And actually, what I did instead of hoping that it didn't stop was after each major area that I did, I actually stopped the filming and then restarted it to make sure that it wouldn't time out on me, because this particular video is almost an hour long, and I guarantee you it did not feel like it was an hour while I was actually painting. So this way, I believe I stopped it after I finished doing the color block. And then I would start it again when I started doing the fine detail, and I would stop it every now and then to just to break up the chunks of the video into a little bit more manageable pieces. Plus, it takes absolutely forever for the videos to upload onto my phone. So that definitely takes the longest amount of time is the download process. So having multiple smaller videos is just a lot easier than having one video that's an hour long and it takes twice as long to upload and then editing. Oh yeah, so it's definitely been an interesting experience for me, deciding to film all this process. Using the big camera works better than using my phone, but it definitely um, creates very, very large files. So this is the medium-sized brush that I use. Oh, okay, so that's where I stopped and restarted. So now we are going to continue with the small brush that I have for the fine detail. And this is where it can get a little bit painstaking. And of course here, I probably would have been able to tell if I had my phone open, I could see what the camera was seeing. It's like, oh, look at my hand is completely blocking what I'm doing in this spot. But yeah, there we go. Okay, so I decided to speed it up because this part is really kind of boring. So all I'm doing is I'm using the tiny brush with different shades of black, maybe a little bit more brown, and just little short flicks to give the impression of fur. And because Peeves has the coloration that he does, he has part of his temple that seems a little thin on fur, so you can see some of his skin underneath. So there's a bit of a fleshy tone, undertone to that. Just adding some depth into the fur. And he has all sorts of little white fur, just random white fur all over the place. If he was a person, it would be like gray hair and you'd pluck it out. But in his case, he would probably be pretty bald. It's hard to tell if this is sped up still. But you can see already it's starting to come together. I'm thinking we're back down to normal speed. Yeah. Okay, just one sec. I'm going to speed this part up again. Okay, here we go. So sped up 3 times. Just still with the small brush, little flicks. Don't use a lot of paint on your brush. Otherwise you'll end up with big blobs as opposed to hair. But I definitely like doing pet portraits as opposed to people portraits. I can do them, I just don't like it. It's just my personal preference. I find it too stressful to get people portraits as photorealistic as possible, and I'm just very, 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 very picky. It's also why when I was in photography, I photographed one wedding and it was like, nope, this is not for me. Because I don't want to have that responsibility of somebody's special day and screwing it up. At least a painting, you can redo it. Weddings, you can't really recreate. So just working on the eye. The eye is really important to convey emotion and mood and personality. They do say that the eye is the window to a person's soul, and you can capture a lot with the eye. So I like to make sure that that you get the eye right. And just like the random white hair in the black fur, he has random black hair in the white fur. and more hair. If you have cats or dogs or pet of some sort, I am sure you understand the plight of fur or pet sparkle. Pet sparkle gets everywhere. So the one good thing about this particular picture of Peeves that I was using is it was definitely more on the high key as opposed to low key. So the high key, the whites, lost a lot of the details. So thankfully, all the drawing of the fur and the hair and stuff like that is only in the darker areas. So thankfully, so we won't have much to do, or I won't have much to do in the really white areas. A little bit around the mouth area and where the slightly darker for his like neck, throat area. But other than that, it's primarily just white. And we are back at the boring part. More lines, more fur. So let's speed it up. So this part of the cat, basically the bridge of the nose, this can be a little tricky because, of course, you're trying to paint in the direction that the fur is growing, but it kind of goes in really weird directions. So, it's going up along the bridge of the nose, it's going, kind of sweeping sideways uh, under the eye and stuff like that. So it can be a little bit tricky to get it right, but it just takes some practice. And on the bridge of the nose, it's tiny, tiny little flicks. It's very shorter hair, so it's very time consuming. I think all said and done, it's not a terribly technical painting. There's really not a lot that you need to really know how to do. It's just time consuming. It's just a little bit nitpicky. It's anytime that you have to go in with a lot of detail, like with fur, um, it's gonna take time. And when I paint, I will flick both up and down with my brush. Gives it a slightly different look, but all things considered, it really does amount to the same thing. And it kind of helps with the directional aspect of the fur as well. And it's also important to remember that fur does not grow in straight lines, so just be very random when you're creating the fur, because you don't want it to look, I guess, mechanical. And it definitely appears that we are back down to normal speed. Okay, come on. I think we're about to start the nose. Hey, look at that. So for the nose, I'm using a more of a stippling motion, as both dogs and cats, um, in most animals, have a texture to their nose. I think I had to get more white. And with the stippling motion of the brush and paint and that, it will create different thicknesses of the paint itself, which makes it nice to blend easily. Just be watchful for areas that you do want a sharp line as opposed to the stippling. So basically where the nostrils are, you'll have the stippling, but then you'll have the strong line of the nostril itself. and the top part of the nose where the nose meets the bridge and the fur. Just adding a little bit of brown. So that's where I was adding more white. Probably most of this, I'm trying to be conscious about how much I put in my palette to make sure I don't waste any of my paint, or not as much as I have in the past. So probably all the white that was on my palette has been mixed with the black and brown and gray and stuff like that. So probably just needed some fresh white right there. Just adding a few more highlights so his nose doesn't completely disappear. But so far it's coming together really quite nicely. I'm quite pleased with how this one ended up turning out. Okay, so decided to speed it up again. So, because guess what? It's more fur. So just adding a little bit more depth, adding in some of those random white fur. And here we start adding in the details of his little mouth. There's not a lot though because of the cropping of the photo and the painting. Just trying to get some uncorrupted white paint in there. Easier said than done, apparently. And some more fur. Huh. What do you know? Okay, just a second. Okay, here we go. Speed it up. Because painting fur is boring and monotonous. Okay, so what I'm painting here is not the whiskers, but I'm painting the area behind the whiskers because the whiskers are white. So I'm painting the fur behind the whiskers. It'll make a little bit more sense later when I go in and actually add the whiskers in, because right now it just kind of looks like crap, but I promise it'll look proper. Hey, the eye. So my kitty's eyes are a really interesting color. They have the gold undertones, but it's like they have green near the pupil and orange at the outside of the iris. I kind of screwed up this color. Didn't like it at all. And irises are really, really interesting just to look at. They have different colors, and it's almost, it's so hard to describe, but when you look at details of irises and the different color and everything like that, it's absolutely fascinating. It's almost like a contained galaxy or something, some of the ones that I've seen. So you can kind of have a little bit of fun with painting the irises. You know, they don't have to be smooth. They can have, you know, like wiggles or strikes or, you know, almost like a starburst or, you know, stuff like that. And the brush is definitely not cleaned, so you can get some both defining colors as well as blending the colors all in the same area. And just a little bit more definition. And just using a very light touch. And just adding a little bit of white for the reflection. So we are almost done. Just adding a little bit of white, a little bit of highlights. Still have to do the whiskers. So I'm using a white paint pen and using that to draw in the whiskers. And because cats at least have those weird eyebrow whiskers, I don't know what they're called. So the paint pen just gives a nice clean and white smooth look about them. And then I decided to go in and add a little bit more into the fur. I don't think I really needed to do that. Probably felt like a good idea at the time, but there we go. Now the part to remove the tape. Now on the left page, I have a piece of white paper folded and put over the painting that's on the other side. I had an issue where I dropped a little bit of water on my painting, and then of course I go to wipe it off, and it was just a bit of a mess. So lesson learned to cover up the other side of the book if you're painting double-sided. But here we have Peeves. I'm very pleased with it. I loved the painting of his sister, and now he has his.